Greetings ladies and gentlefish, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time we're going to have another tank review looking at the Tier 9 Chinese heavy tank, the WZ-111 1-4. First things first, a little bit of history for you. There isn't that much to say about this thing. The Chinese started up a heavy tank development project based largely on the IS-2 that they acquired from the Soviets during and shortly after the Second World War, and by the time you get to around about the 1960s, that project is kind of under full sway, and you end up with the WZ-111, designed to be a heavy tank mounting a 122mm gun. Now production, let me rephrase, not really production, there was a prototype made of this thing, but the prototype and the project itself was cancelled in the mid-60s due to technical issues. Now there is one of these sort of in existence, can be found in Beijing, but they only ever actually made the hull of the tank. They never produced the turret for it, so bear that in mind if you go and look up pictures of the thing. Now in the game, the WZ-111 is split down into three tanks. We have the WZ-111 Tier 8 premium tank, which is probably the closest to the intentional 122mm arm tank. We have the WZ-111 1-4 here at Tier 9, and we also have the WZ-111 5A at Tier 10. But that's really all there is to say about this tank. Historically, it was part of a heavy tank program from the Chinese that, well, at least they built the hull. Just the rest of it never really went anywhere. So, what is it that we get in game? Well, we are up here at Tier 9. If we have a quick look at the tech tree so far, I mean, the main Chinese tech tree, if we exclude the tank destroyers for a moment, it's all this same tech line that just branches off at various points. We're up here at the WZ at Tier 9. So right up until Tier 6 with the Type 58, you've shared this with the medium tank line, and you shared it with the light tanks as well up to Tier 5 at the Type T-34. IS-2 Tier 7 was essentially just a Soviet clone of the IS. There are some minor differences, but there or thereabouts. The 110 is the first time you get something actually a little bit different. I like it, though I appreciate not everyone does. But I do have to remind myself that it's actually been quite a long time since I've played it, and the game has moved along. And then you get up to the Tier 9, which is very similar to the WZ-111 5A at Tier 10, as perhaps you might expect. A bit less similar to the 113 at Tier 10, though it does still maintain those traits of being more of a kind of medium heavy. This is sort of an amalgamation of a medium tank and a heavy tank in a way. So what you essentially have is armour that's kind of medium tank plus-ish, with the gun of a heavy tank, and mobility that's sort of medium tank minus, slightly less than a medium tank. That's the sort of thing you are looking at. So if we look at modules for this particular tank, and when you get here, what you're going to have to unlock, this Tier 9 engine here, potentially you'll have already unlocked if you have played the WZ-120, the T-34-2, or if you unlocked this engine on the IS-2, which of course you did because you're not an idiot, right? And then the top engine here, if you've already unlocked this on the WZ-120, then you'll have it. If you haven't done that, then you'll have to unlock the engine here. So, at the very least, you should start off with this 580 horsepower engine, which is an upgrade over the 520 horsepower engine, and to be honest, for 46,000 experience, the top engine only gives you an extra 20 horsepower, so I would not prioritise this. Radio-wise, this top radio is used on every tank and its mother above about Tier 6 or Tier 7, so there's a good chance you've already got this unlocked, especially as you can have unlocked it on the 110 at Tier 8. You won't already have the turret unlocked. You will, if you've got any sense whatsoever, already have this gun unlocked, however, as it is the top gun on the 110. Now, whilst technically you do not have to unlock that gun in order to unlock the WZ, why would you want to play this thing with the 122s? It's hideous to play the 110 with the 122mm guns, so you'll have this unlocked. Now, this gun, as a grinding gun, it gets the job done most of the time, but it's not going to excite you. It worked on the 110, not so much on the WZ-111. And then of course you've got the turret and the top gun on this tank, which you do want to get. So what I would say as your prioritization, you can leave the top engine for now, because the top engine only gives you an extra 20 horsepower over the mid-engine, which you should already have unlocked. So you want to equip that right away, you want to equip the gun, and then you want to prioritise the turret and the top gun where possible, upgrading your suspension along the way if you need the weight allowance. You should already be able to mount the top radio straight off, and let's be honest, no one gets excited about radios anyway. And then the top engine can be the last thing that you get for this tank. Now you do actually have a choice of 2 different machines to unlock from the WZ here. If you want to unlock the 113, technically you do not need to unlock the top turret and the top gun, but really you want to actually make this tank do something, and then you can unlock the WZ-111 5A from here. Anyway, quick thing to note, by the way, if we have a look at the 113 very briefly, this 122mm gun is also the top gun on the WZ-120. Now, the Chinese tech line really does benefit from a little bit of forward planning, so my recommendation would be, if you have any intention of going up the Chinese medium tank line, if you can unlock, you don't have to purchase, but if you can unlock the 113, you will unlock this gun, which automatically unlocks it for you on the WZ-120, which just makes your grind on the medium tanks that little bit nicer. So we've got it unlocked. What is it that we're actually going to get here? Well, let's start by having a quick look at the tank itself. 1850 hit points for a tier 9 heavy tank that's okay. It's more than you get on something like the AMX 5120, which languishes down at 750. It's not quite as much as you get on the Conqueror. It's there or thereabouts in 1900 on the ST1. So 1850, it's fine. It's, the same as the M103. It's nothing to get too excited about, but it gets the job done. Armour we're going to have a look at in a bit, but just quickly to say for now, the hull is not particularly good, but the turret is quite decent. Mobility. So you have a 600 horsepower engine on a 46-ton tank, giving you just over 13 horsepower per ton, which is in the sort of faster heavy tank realms. Now, this horsepower to ton ratio isn't going to set your world alight. It's not as if this thing is particularly agile, but when you combine it with a forward speed of 50 kilometers an hour, it actually means you can relocate on the battlefield fairly effectively. Traverse speed of basically 30 degrees per second, though this does come with the standard ground resistance caveat. Concealment, it's a heavy tank, who really cares, but it is quite a low profile heavy tank, so I mean, it's not going to be terrible, but like genuinely, who cares? Base view range of 400 meters. You can see mine here is packing 415 with improved vents and recon. And when Brothers in Arms kicks in, that will go up again, and so on. So the base view range is pretty good. That does mean you could use optics on this tank if you wanted to. More on that in a moment. Now let's just have a quick look at the guns. This stock 122mm gun I am not going to look at. It is basically the top gun from the IS-2. If you have any sense, you'll never have to use it. So let's just have a quick look at this gun and the Moneymaker. Just to quickly mention this 100mm gun, this is the top gun from the 110. And again, it gets the job done as a grinding gun, because this tank has a little bit of mobility to use, meaning you can mitigate some of the horror of that 215 pen. 320 Alpha is really not very good on a tier 9 heavy tank, but again, this is only a grinding gun. I really don't want to go through this in laborious detail. This is the Moneymaker. 130mm gun, and it's got a long old barrel. Let's just move that out of the way. Ta-da! 130mm gun, 4.29 rounds per minute rate of fire, which doesn't look good, but when you bear in mind the alpha damage, it's actually pretty respectable. 244 penetration, which is not good, but it's there or thereabouts. So this gun is very similar to the German 128mm guns that you tend to find floating around. And so if we compare it, for example, with the German 128 here, you can see there 246 penetration on the German. Technically the German has more penetration, but only by 2, so who cares. You can also see here in the direct comparison just the disparity between the rates of fire between these two guns, despite the fact that they have the same alpha damage. And this is really one of the big things with the WZ-111. For a gun that hits for 490, it actually is packing better alpha damage than you might otherwise expect. That alpha damage is very much in line, as I say, with the German 12.8cm guns, and they come with a worse rate of fire on the VK and the E75. You also have the option with the WZ of packing 340 PEM with your heat ammunition when it is necessary. Personally, I find I generally end up using that against Type 4s and Type 5s, because if you are forced to face those frontally and no one else is distracting them for you, with the dodgy accuracy on that gun, more on that in a moment, you really can't afford to aim for the weak spots, and once you have aimed for them, you would at best have a 50-50 chance of penetrating anyway. That's just not a good trade. So if you see if I see a Type 4 or a Type 5, it's one of the few times where I will just dab that 2 key and screw it. I hate those tanks, they should have been better designed. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. 0.4 dispersion at 100 meters, that is awful. Yeah, most tier 9 heavy tanks usually at worst have about 0.37, but this is bad. 2.9 second aim time, it's about there or thereabouts for a tier 9 heavy tank gun. So what you get is a gun that hits fairly hard. 490 is pretty decent. Actually has pretty respectable DPM for that alpha damage. You can see in my setup. Is it going to immediately tell us the DPM? Yes, it is. 2,000, just shy of 2,500 DPM with my setup, so that is quite nice. But it is a gun best used at close range. So, what about modules, crew skills, etc.? I've gone for my standard kind of heavy tank loadout of modules. So, vertical stabilizer, you definitely want a vert stab. Gun rammer, you definitely want a gun rammer. And then I've gone for improved vents. Now with a 400 meter base view range on a tank that's actually pretty mobile, you could plump for coated optics here, definitely. Now, I probably wouldn't bother with the enhanced gun laying drive. The aim time isn't great, but I just don't think it's worth going for the enhanced gun laying drive. I mean, that piece of equipment generally isn't worth bothering with anyway. Vertical stabilizer gives you a much bigger benefit to your aiming stats regardless. So I would say that third equipment slot is either going to be vents or optics, as it usually is. Let's be honest, it's quite uncommon that anyone will recommend something that isn't vents or coated optics, but anyway, it is what it is. Consumable wise, I've just got your standard 3 ones. You could plump for something a little more fancy if you wanted to. What I would note is that in common with a lot of Chinese tanks, this thing does take module and crew damage like it's going out of fashion. So the only way you really want to forego either of the repair kit or the first aid kit is to go for their large counterparts. Fire extinguisher, you could go for improved combat rations, but this tank does sometimes set on fire. I really wouldn't recommend it. Ditto for the quality oil or the removed speed governor. Honestly, I think you're just better off with that setup, personally. But your mileage may vary, of course. Crew skills. Don't pay too much attention to this crew. This crew were in the... No, they weren't. This crew was a fresh crew for going through the WZ here, as my old crew had stayed in the 110. So, I mean, I have a lady here as my commander just to make life slightly easier, but, I mean, you want Sixth Sense, you want Brothers in Arms, you want repairs. Your ammo rack does sometimes take a bit of a battering. Safe stowage is not a terrible idea. I tend to say safe stowage on most of my tanks anyway, because the last thing you want is to drive into a battle and, hey, you just lost your head because someone hit your ammo rack. Isn't that fun? But nothing too surprising there about crew skills. Now, because I've got a female commander, and that means she tends to rack up the skills quite quickly, I've also got recon here to boost your view range. Are there any others you might want here? I mean, so your commander is also your radio operator, so situational awareness is not a terrible idea, and actually when she has finished with recon, she's probably going to get situational awareness for a further boost to the tank's view range. I mean, these crew skills are going to be very much the standard ones. Snapshot is your friend. Smooth ride is your friend. Because I've gone for safe stowage, and brothers in arms. That means on my loader I am then going to be taking repairs. Now, if you retrain your crew skills for gold, what you may of course want to do is start off with, say for example, full repairs, and then retrain your loader to safe stowage perhaps, and your commander to sixth sense, and then train repairs on them again, and then retrain them to something like brothers in arms. But personally, because I don't do that, I would rather have sixth sense that little bit sooner. And in this case it was a female crew member anyway, so it didn't really matter. I think I've waffled on for long enough, so let's have a quick look at the armour profile of this tank and then see some gameplay. Right, so let's have a quick look at the armour profile, and I'll also briefly mention kind of modules a little bit. The module location of note that may not come to everyone's mind is that there is an ammo rack toward the rear of the turret, and also, now, this isn't showing up on the software that I use, but I thought there was an ammo rack in the hull. It certainly feels like there's an ammo rack in the hull, but, you know, your mileage may vary. We shall see. Rear armour of the tank, 60, yay. Rear of the turret, 60, yay. Now, you may wonder why the hell is he drivelling on about the rear armour. Here's the thing. For reasons that we'll get onto in a bit, you may wish to side scrape around corners, and you may wish to do it in reverse. And what that means is, you can often end up showing kind of this bit of your hull. Now, this is like 230mm, which can shoot you in the butt sometimes, but this is quite a low profile tank, so it's not uncommon for people to be shooting down on you, and if they're doing that, they can shoot down on the top of your engine deck, and the top of your engine deck is only 25mm thick. So this actually, the low profile of this tank quite badly limits the degree to which you can reverse side scrape. And you might want to do that, partly because the frontal hull armour is a bit dodgy, more on that in a moment, but also because this is a very long machine. And so sometimes it is better just to try and reverse side scrape rather than turn the whole thing around and get the front pointing at the bad guys. Anyway, side of the hull is the 80mm that it claims. 120 up here, you do get some sloping on that armour, and you do get some spaced armour here, plus some tracks. Now what this means is that certainly when angled, you can definitely get some bounces off your side armour, depending on where they hit you. If they're aiming at this lower portion, then you're probably going to need to be at an auto bounce angle in order to actually do much bouncing. But if they're aiming at this upper part, you can definitely get some bounces off of that. Side of the turret is rounded, but realistically, if they're aiming towards the main body of the side of your turret, they're going to penetrate. If they're aiming towards the front of your turret, if the shot hit towards the front, then not so much, which is nice. So, frontal hull armour. Lower front plate is 120mm thick, with a kind of dubious angle, meaning that the lower front plate is basically butter. Upper front plate. Now, you do sort of have a bit of a pike nose going on here, but yeah, much of the upper front plate is struggling to get above about 210 to 220mm of effective armour, and you're at tier 9 now. A lot of tanks are just going to be able to go straight through this upper front plate. Now, if you are using your gun depression, ta-da, you can make bits of that upper plate better. You can start getting them up towards 250, 260, which is nice, but only if you're using that gun depression. If you're not and you're just fighting on the flat, then good luck with that. So the upper front plate is kind of cheese, and if you try and side scrape with it, you end up flattening out this corner section because it does have a slight pike on it, and then you could just be penned relatively easy. So side scraping in this tank is actually kind of awkward, which is why I mentioned that you might want to reverse side scrape earlier on, which is why I mentioned the rear and the roof armour over the engine, which can actually be quite awkward as well. Where this tank does have very, very good armour is the front of the turret. 230mm of stated armour, plus a dirty great big gun mantlet that extend, like, there's ludicrous amounts of spaced armour in some places on this tank. What was that? Over 1421mm of effective armour. Get wrecked. So the front of the turret on this tank is very, very, very good. However, see these cupolas? Yeah. You have Chinese cupola syndrome. Chinese tanks have an irritating habit of having two cupolas on the turret. This one over here is 150mm thick, this one over here is also 150mm thick, but about 160, 170 effective, and this one's sort of around about 180 effective. At this sort of tier 9, in case you'd forgotten, these are big targets to hit, and people can just put shots straight into them. So if you aim your gun too long, you should expect to get penetrated in these two cupolas. So the armour is kind of a good news, bad news situation. Hull, not great. Turret front, very good. Cupolas, oh dear, it all goes a little bit wrong. And that's the armour on this tank. So let's have a quick look at some gameplay. First game then, and this is a tier 9 match, though I should point out this is not 357 matchmaking, this is 510, so the lowest tier tanks in this game are tier 8. So we're not, this is not the very best matchmaking that this tank could receive, but it's still pretty good. We're here, this is a standard game on Corellia. I don't actually play standard matches on this map very much, usually I get assault on this map, sorry, but never mind, nonetheless. And let's just see what we can do. So, straight off the bat, you can see that the stated top speed of this tank of 50 kilometers an hour is a realistic top speed. I'm not going down a road or anything. It's just going along the relatively level on some... the terrain's okay, and I was doing about 48, 49 kilometers an hour. And only really is it when I go uphill that slows down much, but even then I'm doing, what, 34 going uphill, something like that. So the mobility on this tank is pretty decent. It's not massively agile, it's still a heavy tank at the end of the day, but the top speed of 50 kilometers an hour is a speed that you can and will reach. So there's that. Now I've come up over here toward the A1 location on the rationale that I don't need hideous amounts of gun depression to use this. Obviously some is beneficial, and I might be able to bully out the faster elements on the enemy team. Speaking of which, hello Mr. Bulldog, and there's that gun for you. It's missed, but I bounced a shot from that Object 263. Can we see where he actually hit me? Alas, no. That's a bit of a shame. Never mind. So, the shot was aimed reasonably at the M41, but, see what I mean about that gun frustrating me? Yeah, no dice. It is what it is. So, we bounced the shot from the 263, failed to put a shot into the M41. All things considered, could be better, could be worse, sort of thing. Now, going over to here, going to see if I can kind of side scrape around this corner, being very careful about the front of my hull, because as I mentioned, it's not particularly great at taking damage, especially when trying to side scrape here. So what I'm actually trying to do is see if I can bait a shot out into my angled side armour and into my tracks, and then when they're fired, see if I can put a shot into their front, a bit like that, except I don't take advantage because he's got more friends. Oh well. Now the 263 is actually pushed around to engage our Pantera buddy over there, and I'm just going to take the opportunity to put a shot into the dirt. 2 shots fired, and neither of them have actually done anything. This is not a particularly great start, and we just lost our Pantera, and our Oho just got ammo racked by a Stritzwang. Oh dear. And this is now a little bit awkward. So, we've got a T28 over here. I'm going to see if I can give the 110 a bit of a hand against all of these nasty tier 9s. So far, this is not a particularly encouraging start. Hello, Mr. 430, and we bounce on the side of his turret. 3 shots fired, none of which have done anything. And this is not against tier 10s, by the way. Like, hitting the target sometimes is a big enough achievement with this blasted gun. Scoreline is 5-4, and so far we have achieved nothing. Well, I mean, okay, we bounced a couple of shots, to be fair, but we haven't actually put any damage in ourselves, which is awkward. Yay! 1 assistance there onto the Object 263. XP-wise, we're kind of on the scoreboard at last. Hurrah. Ugh. Okay, so 50 TP over there, just his angling was all hideously wrong, and he dies for it. This is all a bit awkward. Now, the Object 430 has actually decided to have a go at our SU-101. 263 made the mistake of firing, which means, hey, we can finally deal with him. Now, the SU-101 has gone to a better place there, but this means I can move around and potentially deal with the Object 430. He bounces on me. I don't actually even hit him. And he dies to people shooting him. Yay, assistance damage, AMX 5100. Take the opportunity. Finally! And we actually get a high roll for that damage there, 543. RNG giveth and RNG taketh away. Is this guy AFK? Oh, never mind. There's artillery. So, one artillery shell there from the M53-55 did 443 damage and took out my gunner. Yay! Now we're able to execute the AMX 5100, but that was slightly frustrating there. We've picked up 2 kills so far. Yeah, that was annoying. This thing I didn't mention before, but this tank does not take artillery well. The armour tends to rely more on angling than on raw thickness, and the propensity of this thing for taking crew and module damage, oh, he's fired, he's going to regret that. For taking crew and module damage is, yeah, it just means artillery is bad. Now, you can see here that actually when we're careful about what we're showing to the bad guys, i.e. essentially our turret, that's not going to work. Essentially our turret, the armour is not terrible. That was not a properly aimed shot. AMX M449 appears to be trying something on R110, so we're just going to come around here and see if we can punish him for that. I do have to be careful because I am very painfully aware that artillery can shoot us here. He takes out R110, I'm able to put a shot into his side for my troubles, and, well, he's shooting our T28. I put another one into him. There's artillery again. I can't take off that stun, so it's going to take me ages to reload this. Sorry, Mr. T28, I'm coming. There we go. Deal with the AMX, stunner's worn off. And now the Object 257. I hate Object 257s, just for the record. I'm trying to get in this guy's way to stop him shooting my friendly T28 in the side, but it's kind of awkward. Shot there, I managed to plonk one into the side of the pike nose on the Object 257. And enemy artillery has another crack. 257 puts a shot into me. Let's just see if we can notice where that shot goes in. Ah! Stupid friggin' thing. Front of the hole. This is really awkward because we're so close. It's difficult to get the camera angle. But just to the left-hand side of the gun, you can see a hole in my upper frontal plate. And this is, yeah. At the time of playing this, I was not massively familiar with the armor profile on the 257. Don't shoot it there. I'm trying to keep this guy tracked. He hits me again. Put a shot into his pike nose there. Now, I should be able to take one more shot from him, assuming he penetrates, which he probably will. And I should be able... Oh, or I can bounce it there, and I should be able to kill this guy. You see, I'm not familiar with the frontal armor profile of the 257, and actually the M41 saves me there. So I'm not going to complain about the 257. That wasn't a particularly well fought engagement from me. It just showed my ignorance of the capabilities of the 257. Also showed that the armor on that tank is ridiculous and stupid, and I don't necessarily mean overpowered, I just mean stupid, but more on that in a different video. That is not the purpose of this video. Trying to get a shot on the WZ here without killing our T30. There we go. That takes us up to 4 kills. And now we just need to find the enemy artillery, but I don't think I'm going to get up there to do anything before our team take him out. Pretty sure that M41's going to pick up the kill. There's only actually 3 of us left here. It would be really nice to get some revenge on this guy because he's been slapping me all damn game and it's been driving me up the wall. But I don't think it's going to happen. I'm pretty sure that M41's got his number, and indeed he has. And that was the match. In the end then, that game was enough for First Class Mastery, Shellproof Fighter, Fire for Effect and Bruiser awards. Finished second on our team, by experience, just behind that M41 90mm. He had a good game. We did 3,789 damage, got 4 kills, 1,209 base experience. 17 shots fired, 14 hits, 10 pens for that damage count. Most of the damage was from relatively close range. 8 hits received, 3 penned, 5 did not, 2 splash, because screw you Arty, for 2,260 damage blocked by our armour. And you can see there we only really took damage when either A, it was artillery and big fat HE shells, or B, people had good shots into our frontal hull. When we were being cautious and only giving them the front of our turret to shoot at, nothing actually went through. 1 enemy vehicle spotted, 5 damaged, 4 destroyed, 877 assistance, and 2.5 kilometers travelled. Now, I was running a premium account at the time. I think that came with, I can't remember what that came with, but anyway, I was running a premium account, so that ended up being a 20,000 credit profit. Had I not been running a premium account, that would have been a 1,600 credit profit. Yeah, and that was without firing any premium ammunition. So you do have to bear in mind, these shells are not massively cheap. Bear that in mind. Anyway, that was our top tier game. Let's go and have a look at the bottom tier game next. Tier 10 Matcherino time then, 357 matchmaking. So the matchmaking is actually not that much worse than the previous match. The main difference is that there are 3 tier 10s on each team, and one of those is artillery. So just having a quick look at each team, seeing what we are likely going to struggle to penetrate, and really it's that 268 version 4, let's be honest. Once again, pretty mobile tank. Getting up to 49 kilometers an hour without too much difficulty, and we're going in after this 113. And we're both rushing from the north spawn here to this central roadway, because from here you can kind of dominate the rest of the map here on Ruinberg. Is this Ruinberg? Yeah, it is. And there we go. So, 113 is looking out over the field, I'm looking out over toward the town. We should be able to give our allies some decent support here. If that Object 277 would just back off a little bit, then we can put a shot into his flank, but hey ho. AMX 65, and we just damage his tracks. At least that one hit this time, unlike the previous game where it just... ugh. Anyway. That shot actually hit, so we'll take the hit. And again, when I played these, not very familiar with the Object 257 armor profile. Really should have held that shot and waited for the lurver. Because what I would normally do with shots like this is try and go for the tracking shot, track them through the axle, damage them, but that really does not work on the 257. So you have to try and be a little bit adaptable. Someone, though, possibly our 113 friend, has put a big fat shot into the 257 there. So, yeah, he can go jump. And we haven't actually really done anything yet so far, which is a little frustrating, but never mind. No. None of those are likely going to penetrate me, don't think. We'll take that one though. Kind of upper part on the slight side of the angled pike nose, and there we go. Finally some damage. A low damage roll at 444, although it's not often that you say 444 on a tier 9 is a low damage roll, but it was. And then we're just waiting to see who we can shoot next. So we have managed to get ourselves on the scoreboard, which is nice. So we've got Lerva, Tiger 2, 277... The 268 version 4 has managed to get himself killed somehow, which is nice. Oh, and that just goes into the dirt, which is frustrating. But he bounces on me, and he's firing heat here, by the way. I'd just like to point that out. He's firing heat with like 340mm of pen, but they're just bouncing off the front of my turret. So the front of the turret on this tank, providing they don't hit you in the cupolas, is really very good. Hello, Mr. Lerva. Oh, and he bounced. And the 257 is done. Thank you, T110E4. Now, I'm not sure if that's actually going to penetrate or not. We take a punt, and 437 it does. A low damage roll again. 490 average on this gun. 444, 437, come on! Oh well, never mind. I was going for the cheek of the turret there, but no dice. Now I want to wiggle to try and deprive him of easy shots on the cupolas, and another bounce there. Now this is not being the most exciting game so far, and I actually switched to HE, put around into his front just to annoy him mainly. Yeah. Just gonna see what we can do here. And at this point, to be honest, I could probably move forwards and deal with the AMX-65T. Ta-da! It's almost as if past me read future me's mind. Hello, Mr. AMX-65T. Are you having a good day? I hope you're having a good day. I'm having a good day. Boom. Oh, we missed the opportunity to shoot the 705 in the side, but we did shoot the AMX. 705 is more valuable, but never mind. And now all of the guys come out to play. And I'm wiggling to try not to take any damage, but I do take a hit from the Object 705, firing heat at me. But it goes through the my frontal plate, so these Soviet heavies firing heat really doesn't make any difference. If you hit the front of the turret, you're going to bounce. If you hit the front of the hull, you're going to pen. Doesn't matter whether you fire heat or AP. 705 giving me his side there, and finally a high damage roll. Like, we went down to 397 against the AMX, but finally a decent damage roll, 583, because apparently this match averages are for suckers. Wiggle, 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 wiggle there, just to stop hopefully getting shot by the object. And 534 into the lava, set him on fire, and the fire finishes him off, which is nice. And he becomes kill number 1. 705 there. Oh, he's only got 32 health remaining, and he becomes kill number 2. The scoreline is 9-6 at this point, so it's looking like this is probably just going to be a clean-up on aisle 3, but we shouldn't underestimate the machines or players that they have remaining, so we do still want to be a little bit careful. Object 277 is round the corner, so nuts to that. Although he does kill the Emil. Or the Tiger kills the Emil. Sorry, my apologies. Oh, hello. Hello, artillery. How are you today? Can we squeeze in a shot on this guy? Worth a punt. No, no dice. Fair enough. Alright, okay. So we've got Tiger 2 over there. Object 277 to our right-hand side. AMX and KV4 down here to our left. The enemy artillery is dead, and I pick up the assistance for it, which is nice. Hello, Mr. KV4, how you doing? Oh! T110E4 gets it's just that little bit quicker on the trigger. God damn it. Well, can we at least execute the AMX-65T? With any luck, yes. Might take a hit for doing this, but I just want to clean up at this point. Yeah, and he actually hits my ammo rack. Where did that shot go through? Just a regular AP round. Actually really difficult to see. That was the heat round. Can't actually see where that AP round hit. Well, there goes my ammo rack. So I have to put my ammo rack back in because Chinese tanks, go figure. So now we've got Tiger 2, Object 277, and the tin I'm Waffle Thrower to clean up. Just going to speed this along a little bit. And how many of these kills can we get? We actually take a hit in the side from the Waffle Thrower. Goodbye, Mr. Object 277. The Waffle Thrower is on full health, which is interesting. I can take a hit from the Tiger 2. He rolled for 602? Is that a small hit with the big gun or a big hit with the small gun? Either way, hello, Mr. Tiger. You're dead too. That's kill number 5. And now, oh, that's messy for the Waffle Thrower. He doesn't have many hit points remaining. And now he has even fewer remaining. And there we go. That is the match. Once again, let's go and have a look at the post-game stats. So, there we go. That was enough for First Class Mastery, Reaper, Spotter, Arsonist, Duelist, Fire for Effect, and a Top Gun medal. Not as much of a close-fought match, that one. as the previous game was, and we actually managed to achieve quite a lot just in the clean-up toward the end there. Finished at the top of our team with 3,317 damage done, 6 kills, 1,240 base experience. I don't think I could have been too far off of an ace tanker with that game, but go figure. It was a first class in the end, so nuts to it. Commiserations to the enemy, Object 277, 5,500 damage from him. No kills out after 5,500 damage. No kills, and he loses. Sucks to be him. 18 shots fired, 13 hits, 11 pens for that damage count. We received 8 hits, of which 3 penned and 5 didn't. And what was interesting about the armor performance there is that you got to see that really a lot of the time, especially if they're tier 9 and 10 tanks, it doesn't matter if they're firing armor piercing or premium ammunition. They'll pen your hull and they'll bounce on your turret. The end. 1 enemy vehicle spotted, 7 damage, 6 destroyed, 1,138 assistance damage, and again with a premium account running at the time we made a 48,000 credit profit. Also bear in mind, however, we had personal reserves running at the time. Had it been a standard account and had it been without the personal reserves, we would have made a loss, as a number of those shots that we fired didn't do any damage. There we are, ladies and gentlemen. So that was the 2 matches I wanted to show you. Let's just go and round things off in the garage. Overall thoughts then on the WZ-111. Well, all things considered, it is a fairly respectable tier 9 heavy tank. I would say it's probably not the best tank for relatively new players, so I wouldn't choose this as your first tank line, because some of the disadvantages of this tank, the poor gun depression, for example, tend to be more difficult for new players to compensate for. And the fact that this tank is not a straight up in your face head-to-head brawler often, well, not in the same way that like a Type 4 is, for example, means that again you probably don't want to be playing this tank if you are a beginner. But if you're a relatively experienced World of Tanks player and you just want something a little bit different, this is not a terrible tank to go for, and I know a lot of people like it. However, I don't. I really want to like this tank, and it has its moments where I think, oh yeah, that's awesome, but I just don't. And a lot of that is due to the gun. The gun is nice when it works, but it is frustrating and unreliable. And whilst the reload is good for a 490 alpha damage gun at tier 9, it's still long enough to be annoying when things go wrong and when you miss and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't like it. Now, I'm actually going to... I've avoided making a particular comparison throughout this entire video, and I'm going to make it now. Because if you like this style of tank, there's also the Soviet T10. And I've avoided making that comparison because I really wanted this thing to stand on its own merits. But now I think it is time to actually make that direct comparison. So let's actually compare the two directly and see what we get. And I'm making this comparison because, one, the two tanks are very similar, but well, you'll hopefully notice the second reason in a moment. So let's start off in the gun department. The WZ has better alpha damage, 490 compared to 440. The T10 has better penetration, a faster rate of fire. The gun traverse is the same, the gun depression is the same. The WZ has better gun elevation, but that's rarely much of an issue. The T10 has a better aiming time, the T10 has better fully aimed accuracy, and that higher rate of fire actually gives the T10 better DPM. So effectively, the WZ has better alpha damage, the T10 has better penetration, rate of fire, and hence DPM, aim time, and accuracy. And if you actually look at the soft stats, some of the gun dispersion values are the same, but where they do differ, the T10 is once again better. I should mention, of course, the T10 will have slightly worse high explosive rounds as it's a smaller caliber gun, and will have fractionally fewer overmatch opportunities as it's a smaller caliber gun. But all things considered, the T10, I think it's fair to say, gets the better gun. Survivability. The WZ has an extra 50 hit points. Let's be honest, most of the time that's not going to make a difference. Armor-wise, I mean, you don't get this information in much detail in the game client. Let me just say, the hull on both tanks is comparable. The real difference is going to be the turrets. The frontal turret armor on the WZ is, strictly speaking, better but the frontal turret on the T10 is still good enough to weather basically anything, so that better frontal turret armor on the WZ is overkill and doesn't count for much, and the WZ has two big fat cupolas, the T10 not so much. So actually I would argue that the T10 also has the better effective armor. Oh dear. Maneuverability, or mobility I should say. So the T10 is a slightly heavier tank with a more powerful engine, giving it a better horsepower to ton ratio. The speeds, maximum speeds, are the same. It also has better stated traverse speeds. However, the WZ does get better ground resistances, and not by a small margin either. So on balance, I think probably the mobility of the two tanks is essentially the same. So nothing to really tell there. Concealment wise, I mean frankly, who cares? This is a heavy tank. Strictly speaking, the WZ is better, but it really doesn't make much difference. View range is the same. Signal range, again, who cares? It's good enough. So the T10 appears to have the better gun, better armor, and the mobility, my apologies, is essentially the same between the two. Now, I have not played the T10 myself, I only have the numbers to go off, but it looks like the T10 is just better than the WZ. And this is really a problem for the WZ then. Now, it doesn't necessarily stop the WZ being a good tank on its own, but it does make you wonder, why would I play the WZ more than I have to when I could just play the T10? Yeah, and that is a problem. So, there we go, I've made the comparison. I would actually be really interested to hear any of you guys who have played both the WZ and the T10, how do they compare? Because as I say, I have not played the Soviet machine, I've only played the Chinese one, and on paper, the T10 looks better, but I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on that. So, am I keeping this tank? Well, ultimately, in case you hadn't gathered, no, because I find the gun frustrating. Having said that, I have unlocked the 113. I am about 100,000 experience away from unlocking the WZ-111 5A, so I'm still going to be keeping it for now, and I've yet to actually ace this thing. I've got a bunch of first class in it, but I've yet to actually ace it. My win rate in it is also not fantastic. I really struggled with this machine initially. I have become better at it, but it was definitely one of those tanks that I found difficult to start off with. And there we go. I'm not ultimately going to keep this machine, but that doesn't mean it's bad, it just means I don't like it. Really, I don't like that gun. Or the propensity for modules and crew members to fall out everywhere, but there we go. It is what it is. So, I hope you guys found that review vaguely interesting, and or informative, and or entertaining, or whatever. If you did, by all means feel free to catch some of my other videos, and or subscribe to my channel, and as ever, I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao, ciao.